All right. So this is my last session I'm chairing today. So yeah, almost done. The dad jokes are almost over. I got one last one. Do you want to hear it?
No.
Lydia said no, so I'm going to do it. All right. So why did the CFP get rejected? The title was Synergizing Our Proactive Cyber Posture Delivering AI at Scale. The committee didn't get past the abstract. There you go. Badumts. Thank you. We'll need some effects next time. Anyway, so right. So next up, we have some of the AUSCERT program committee pulling back the curtain on how talks actually get selected. So we have Kat is a CISO and IRAP assessor at Flametree Cyber. Lydia, you just met if you're in the session just before. We have Colby, Beck, and one, oh, what? That's me. All right, I might as well sit down. We have a round of applause for everyone.
And Lucas.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. So, welcome to our beautiful panel about what makes a CFP a winner. I might just start by going down the line, starting with you, Lucas, just to give a little context about why you're here, your representation, I guess, at other conferences and CFP committees.
Thank you. Yeah, so ages ago, I used to be involved with CrikeyCon. That was my first foray into CFPs and presentations and whatnot. We run B-Sides Melbourne alongside some other awesome humans, so there's a CFP process along with that as well. And then recently I've been invited to join the AUSCERT review board as well. So I've lost count around how many papers I've reviewed, but I'm about to hand over to the next person. It's probably 10xing my number.
No, stop. No, I've got this. I get embarrassed to say this. As well as B-Sides Melbourne, I'm also on the Black Hat USA and Asia review board. I'm also on the B-Sides Las Vegas review board, and occasionally I get a friend of mine to suck me into the B-Sides Philly review board as well. But I say that I'm a CFP addict. I have a CFP addiction. So that's me.
I'm Colby. I've been on the AUSCERT CFP for quite a fair few number of years, and I also volunteer for a few of the other conferences. So far I've been avoiding their CFPs, but do integrate a little bit with them as well, like CrikeyCon, to make sure that we're not clashing too much as well.
I'm Kat McCrabb. I'm on the ACER committee for Queensland and played a fairly significant role in BrizTech this year, which included trying to inspire people to put in CFPs, but then also going through the selection process for that. And also on the committee to support the selection of the speakers for this conference this week. So after hearing some of the other experience on the stage, I've got a little bit of imposter syndrome here, but I think that's really common for this industry.
I think Colby forgot SEC talks in there as well. So yeah, some really good diverse approaches, and that's why you've got the panel in front of you that you do. So if you've ever submitted a talk or even just thought about it, which we hear a lot, you've probably wondered what actually happens after you hit submit. What are reviewers actually looking for, and what turns a good idea into a selected talk? Today we're lifting the lid on that process, and I'm joined by this esteemed panel, all experienced reviewers, and I'm hoping that they can give you some insights and we can see some really quality submissions in AUSCERT 2027. So they've seen it all, the strong submissions, the almost there ideas, the hidden gems, the I wish they wrote a bit more so I could understand where this was going, or I wish they didn't submit another AI submission. So we'll get started, and we might start with you, Kat. Where should people start? Is it the topic? Is it the audience? Yeah, where do we get our grounds from?
I would suggest start with your passion. If you've got a topic, a piece of research, a group that you really want to talk to and you're feeling very passionate about something, ensure that your talk really centres around that. It will come out not only in the quality of your submission, but also in the depth of your research and the energy that you bring into presenting it. Then I'd be looking also at the theme or the goals of the conference for which you're submitting the talk, and align the passion to what that conference is aiming to achieve and the audience of it. the passion, that's the whole Simon Sinek find your why thing, I'd be starting with that.
So Lydia's helped us a lot in the past, and I hope people have watched Lydia's past videos with us. We've done a lot of webinars about how to choose a topic. And so I'm going to go to Lucas and Lydia for the next little bit here. And they're giggling because they've got some ideas for you. Okay. How do we start by coming up with a topic? I'm sitting there, think I want to dip my toe into presenting. Where do I get started?
This is such a great question, Beck. And Lucas and I might do a bit of a role play. We might muck it up. But it's something that we get asked all the time, you know, whether it's AUSCERT, B-sides, whatever. What do I submit? And I think Lucas reminded me, I forgot, a couple of years ago, we did it on, I don't know, Beck, if we did it for AUSCERT. We just said, start talking. So something like this. Hey, Lucas, what are you working on at the moment?
So integrated run zero, so like an asset discovery tool into a CMDB, trying to get some vulnerability data out of that and trying to kind of connect it through with Nessus, and then ultimately trying to answer the question around how does AI kind of sit all over this. But you know what, I got nothing to talk about. Great to get your help.
Do you know, that sounds so cool. And since working on that, what are some of the things that you found?
Vibe coding saves me a lot of time for starters. APIs, the documentation is usually out of date, which can be quite frustrating, but learning a lot on the way, which has been great. And vulnerability management is an incredibly difficult problem to solve and prioritize which is the vulnerability you need to really, really consider and think about.
I have seen so many nods, heads in the audience going, that is so interesting. Why don't you talk about that?
That's a great idea, thank you. And that's how you come up with the topic. It can just be something like as a massive frustration of yours that you've been smacking your head against the wall for the past, X amount of time. And I remember reading something that said, if you've posted this frustration in your team on Slack about 6 times, or if you've explained something to someone within your organisation or even outside your organisation more than 3 times, there's probably something there as content for a presentation.
And I think what's really important is there's an itch, scratch it. Don't follow the trends. Find something that you love. And if there's something that you're solving, whether it's at work or maybe you're building a home lab. We have a home lab village this year because it was just so huge. Find something that people that are going to learn from and you'll have a home run.
Anything anyone else would like to add to that little topic of conversation? On topics? No, we're going quiet. And look, obviously a role play, because I know Lucas is currently bushwalking and doing random things, not working on any of those things. But we did this in webinars ourselves, like one person just talking about what they're working on, start to think about what projects you've done, little challenges that you've hit, and they're really what other people are looking for too. It's quite common, we find when we're talking to AUSCERT members even, it's like, okay, if you've got one problem, you'd be quite surprised how many other organisations are facing the same problem at the same time. Crowdsource it. So let's move on to what to include in that submission. And, I was jesting in the beginning, but we do get a lot of really short abstracts. And we are honestly, I wish the process involved going back and going, can you clarify, can you add some more details? But we really have to assess on what that one submission is. It can't be, they presented amazingly in the past, so they should go well here. It really is assessed on that one point in time submission that you put in. I mean, obviously include and reference that you've presented before, it adds some weight, but it all needs to be there. So let's go to maybe Colby on this one on what to include. Is there any must-have elements that you can think of that you look for in your submissions when you're reviewing?
I think if there was one key takeaway, would be key takeaways, because thank you, because if you have a really interesting topic that's maybe a little bit more niche, it can be hard to tell people what they're going to get out of that. But if you can put that into the submission right from the start, that really helps. Just other things a few paragraphs talking about information is really nice, but if you have a bit of a talk outline, more going into some dot points of the structure, it's okay if you write an abstract and then far later decide that was a bad structure, I'm not going to go with that. But it gives us a bit more of an insight into what the talk would be. Specifically, that's where you can start to add like your own little unique niche onto it. And yeah, if ever you've like presented before, hopefully there's like a recording of that, like send us the link so we get like an idea of your presentation style. It gives like more confidence. And just like if there's anything in there that you personally are nervous about, like I'm afraid this will be seen as a sales pitch, or I'm afraid this will be seen as too niche. Like it's far better to just call those things out right from the start. Like if you call out the thing that you're nervous about and say, hey, I'm concerned this could be seen as a sales pitch because I work at a software vendor. This is actually a talk about my personal experience. This is not a sales pitch. That's the kind of thing that can really help us make the best informed decision.
Just to add to that as well, the sales pitch thing is always, it's such a fine line. And every single review board conversation that I've been in is always like, is this a sales pitch? So actually clearly saying, hey, I know I'm working in that area. This is not a sales pitch, 110%. And even going through and actually showing what you are aiming to present about, the reviewer can actually have a look at that and say, you know what, this generally does not look like a sales pitch. The person is speaking out of a SME context instead of a sales context, and that just adds a lot more weight to it. Because I don't know how many papers we've reviewed, they're just like, no, this is absolutely a sales pitch, and you just, no, sorry mate, it's not going to happen.
Some people don't disguise it.
But can I add two things? I always say three things. Title, think of it like your movie that you're about to watch. Movies have always got a great title, so make sure it's something catchy but not necessarily gimmicky. What makes a CFP a winner, or CFP for hackers, whatever you want to call it. And basically, when you're in a conference, you've got all these titles, make them stop and go, oh, I want to read this abstract. Abstract is your blurb, all right? Let them know what they're going to see, and then make them think, there's 10 other talks going on at the same time, I want to see that one. And then, as Colby was saying, the inside of it, tell them what makes your talk different, because that stuff doesn't get published, and just put your heart and soul into it.
Kat, can I go to you on this one as well? What makes a great abstract? What are people looking for when they're reading that part of the submission?
I feel the biggest thing that a audience is after from your abstract is the key takeaways. What will I gain from attending this talk? So being really honest about what you're going to be discussing, make it succinct, because a lot of us have a short attention span, and then also be transparent about the key takeaways. You know, you'll walk away with knowledge about X, Y, and Z, and an understanding of how to apply that knowledge in your environment, or whatever it is that you are truly hoping that the audience receives from your talk. People present because they want to share, so be open about what you're sharing, and that way you'll have an audience that wants to receive that.
Beautiful. I'm going to go back to Lydia now with, how are we going to make our submission stand out? What's the difference between a good submission and a great submission?
Such a great question. I think there's a couple of things I want to add here. It's going to depend on the conference too. So, you know, a black hat talk will look different to an AUSCERT talk versus to a B-sides talk. Actually, AUSCERT and black hat aren't too much different, if I'm to be honest. But you really need to tailor it to your audience. If you want to go to a DEF CON or a black hat, you need to ensure that your research is novel. It needs to be something new, and you haven't presented it before. So make sure that that's something that you are talking about. This is new because I researched 332 architects. That's never been done before, as opposed to, and this is okay for a B-side, this is my own opinion. So I think the difference between a good and a great talk is, think of the conference, think about who the audience is, and just make sure that you're hitting that right audience and that they're able to learn something from your talk. But just make sure that you've got the theme right, because we get lots of good talks, but then a great talk goes at next level because they really understand what the conference is looking for.
I might get you to add some insights as well, Lucas, because I think we also find that, they're trying to sell us on them, but what about focusing on what the audience is going to, where's the audience value in attending that presentation?
So for me, when I'm looking at abstracts, even up on a board or in the AUSCERT app that you should download, the first few lines, and like Kat said, I'm lost up. If it's a massive, massive paragraph and, you're going into your whole journey of how you went into this thing and you found this thing, that is great, but leave that in a presentation. Yeah. I'm more concerned about what that destination looks like. So something like, I join my talk if you want to solve this problem, and then you start describing the problem a little bit. That's the destination, that's what you found, or Lydia's talk just earlier around architecture. I've interviewed 330 something architects, and this is my insight into getting a lot of data points out, and this is what it might mean to you in your architecture journey. So immediately you know what the destination is going to look like at the end of that presentation. Lydia will take you on the journey during the presentation of the why, the how, and the where, and all those other questions that might pop up.
Right. Now let's tackle what actually happens behind the scenes.
Arguments.
Yeah, the debate is my favourite day of the year, I have to say. But I think it's really important to point out to everybody that every submission is reviewed by at least 3 of our reviewers. So it's not reviewed by one person. And that is always a balance of internal and external people to AUSCERT. So, represented here is a lot of people from outside of AUSCERT that are on the committee. But I might go to you, Colby, to talk a little bit about what happens when you go to a review and what process and things you assess on with our scoring criteria.
Yeah, so Beck has, cultivated a committee over the years, which has, changed and morphed over the years, and it's to try to get like this wide diverse of people and opinions so that we're not all one kind of thing we're interested in. There's like a very diverse group, and Lucas already gave away the hint, like straight away, not everyone leaves that room 100% satisfied. So we have a massive number of submissions and we all independently review them and we talk through all of them. And if at AUSCERT we can accept, say, 30 presentations, we'll probably say yes to 40 or 50. And then we'll go, okay, how do some of those yeses become nos? Because ultimately there's always people who you say, I would love to see that presentation. I personally really want to go to that. And then it's kind of like in the committee, you have to go up and bat for like your presentation. And it's really hard because sometimes you have to say no to a really, really good presentation because it might even not necessarily fit in the flow of the day. Like if we have lots and lots of submissions on one particular topic all at one conference.
AI.
I don't think we were massively flooded with AI this year. Well, there's a lot of AI submissions, but it's really tricky because, we have to say no to people. Like that's a fundamental fact. And a lot of those people are people we know and are close with. And it sucks to come up to that person and say, sorry, you didn't make it this year. But we would, if we could just keep extending the conference forever and get bigger and bigger and bigger, I don't know, that may not be the right thing for the conference, but yeah, it's an emotional balance, and I think we've gotten to a pretty good point where we all leave friends at the end of the day. But yeah, yeses have to become nos.
The way I think about it when I'm kind of reviewing, and again, like Lydia mentioned earlier, it's a different conference. Black Hat and AUSCERT are more similar than something like a B-Sides or a C-Sides or even like a Sec Talks, right? So what I try to do when I'm reviewing papers is I put my mind into the audience, saying, okay, well, demographics, industry, background, what are the typical type of people that go to that conference? So an AUSCERT tends to be, what's in the name, AUSCERT, tends to be more of a defensive type of flavour. Yes, there's a bit of offensive, we've seen some offensive content, but it's more around, hey, we need to share knowledge, it's, and like what AUSCERT does as an organisation, that's fundamental to the core of where the actual conference itself is. For us with B-Sides, especially Melbourne, every B-Sides has their own flavour as well. For us with B-Sides Melbourne, it's very, hey, how do we get people into this industry, build them up, grow them, and so a lot of the presentations are, yes, technical, but also somewhat career focused or somewhat journey focused around trying to get more people into this industry. You go to Canberra, super technical. B-Sides Brisbane with Brodie and that, it's hardware is a strong flavour of theirs. So they tend to favour a lot more the hardware types of talks as well.
Let's take a moment to actually talk about that debate that happens. And the reason I say it's one of my favourite days of the year is I think it's really interesting. Obviously the whole committee hasn't seen every submission. 3 people of the committee have. So the ones that have scored it and rated it highly are kind of defending their reports. Is anyone willing to talk on that?
I can just add a little bit. The way I like to think about it is in terms of, would I leave a conversation mid-conversation saying, hey, sorry, Colby, I've got to go. There's a talk at 1 p.m. which I have to see, or at 2:40 p.m., which is a panel which I have to go to. So that for me is like, sorry, I'm gonna not you have veto rights, but you really have to defend it. And then it also challenges you as well, saying, well, why would that be interesting content? And it challenges you as a reviewer as well, because maybe there's something you didn't actually consider in the first place. So Lydia might come back and say, actually, no, I don't think that's on point because of these things. That technology came out last week, which is contradicting a lot of the findings that researcher may have kind of found. So that for me is a really interesting kind of conversation. You really need a deep dive into the content and actually read the submission, which is great. So test you for sure.
Yeah, and to be clear, at that day when we've got the whole committee together, there is, access to every submission. So there is that review period where we have a moment to go, let me have a look at that myself. And some of the people that have rated low suddenly get brought across by the people that have rated high. So there's a lot of changing minds and agreeances that happen throughout there as well.
I think that's like a really interesting aspect when 1 or 2 people will rate a submission quite low for a particular reason. And a lot of the times that could be because of a misconception, and then that third person can come in and say, no, here's the reason that I rated it highly. And, the worst thing that we never want to happen is all 3 people have a misconception about the talk, and then we don't get the talk, and then we find out it would have been amazing. So, yeah, it's sometimes the talks that are controversial are the best talks because it challenges us.
Yeah, and we all learn from each other. So let's talk about some of the common pitfalls and the mistakes that people make. Maybe Kat can take this one. What's a common avoidable mistake that you think people can look at with their submission?
Using AI.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah, there is a very, very high volume of submissions which are clearly led with AI. They have very similar structure and again, perhaps the short attention span, or maybe it's very easy to recognise the AI submission, so your perception of that talk will immediately lower. The other actionable guidance I'd give is being clear and succinct and ensuring that your CFP can be understood by the diverse experiences and contexts that make up the panel. If it's a really deep technical talk, I'm probably not going to understand it. That's not my background. So I'm reliant upon the other reviewers to make an assessment as to whether it's going to be a high quality talk. But if you happen to modify the language somewhat and tell me, give me the opportunity to evaluate it from a business or a leadership perspective, or even from that GRC perspective, then I can understand what your talk will achieve, understand its value, and advocate for it as well. So don't use AI, and try and ensure that your CFP is accessible to a diverse audience.
I actually get the fun job of allocating all the submissions to these reviewers. And there is a button in our system that auto-allocates, and I can just choose how many. And every year I want to press that, and I don't. So I literally go through every submission by their category and go, Lucas is really interested in this area. We'll give him those topics. And yeah, so these are really, what we're trying to do is match those submissions to the expertise. Yeah, because Kat's going to fall asleep if she gets a whole bunch of really technical things to review. Of course she's interested, but yeah, we don't want her deep diving each of those. So it's really matched up to interest and expertise from the whole panel as well. Lucas, can we talk about, maybe the factor of over and underselling what you're going to deliver in that presentation?
So the classic overselling ones that you'll see is like the silver bullet. This solves all the problem. Everything is going to be solved after this presentation. And then what we sometimes you'll see on stage, if it gets through the review process, is this is like a red teamer tool that does this and does this and does that. And then you spend half the talk actually just looking at the person trying to set it up, or going through all the configuration sets and everything like that, and actually not really having anything of substance within that. The journey as well is almost as important as the destination, as the final product, if you're releasing something like a tool. So what I commonly talk to whenever I'm coaching any speakers is there's always that little aha moment of like, hey, I was hacking this thing till midnight on Friday night. All my mates are at the pub, but there was something there. And then you have that little aha moment. What was that aha moment? Share that with the audience, because then they can immediately resonate. Every single person that's worked in this industry can resonate with that aha moment. And then flip side of that is definitely the underselling aspect of it. So within a submission, you should use words such as, what I'm going to try to do in this presentation is showcase this tool, and hopefully it'll work and it doesn't blow up on stage, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So just convey the same level of confidence in your CFP to the same level of confidence you want to have up on stage when you're actually presenting your content, is probably the biggest takeaway for that.
Thank you. Now, we really want a diverse group of presenters. We don't want everyone that's polished and experienced. We want to encourage new people and bring people back. So Lydia, I might start with you. What advice have you got for first-time speakers?
I love first-time speakers because we're all first at something. And one of the things I always say to people that have been in the industry, make sure we treat our firsts with care, because we all started there. First-time speakers are special because it's their first and we want to make it memorable. So I think one of the things that I try to kick to the side is the imposter syndrome, obviously. I don't want to talk too much about that, but you've got to kick that to the side. You have been selected. Be proud of yourself. And then I strongly encourage each and every one of you to be part of a speaker mentor or a coaching program. Be accountable, work with a buddy. AUSCERT has got speaker mentoring as well. So if you get accepted to AUSCERT, make sure you pick up a mentor. And some of the other conferences are picking them up as well. And it's just someone to keep you accountable, build your story. Lucas was saying it before, all the technical stuff's great, but there's a reason you were hacking on a Friday night and your mates were down at the pub drinking beer because you got lost in whatever you're doing. There's a story there. So it's not all about all the technical stuff. It's great, but make sure that you're building your story, making sure that it's fun, and then incorporate it into that. But I encourage more first-time speakers. I think that you guys are super important, but mentorship.
Just a very quick one as well. Every single person gets nervous before coming up on stage.
Yeah.
I was nervous before coming up here. I get nervous before I do the MC thing or the chairing thing.
It's healthy.
Right, every single one of us. And if anyone ever says they're never nervous before going up on stage, they're full of it. Absolutely full of it. Everyone
Or they
everyone
should be
does.
nervous.
Yeah.
Colby, I'm going to go to you for the opposite side. What about our experienced speakers?
Experienced speakers are sometimes hard because a lot of us have personal relationships with them. If there's someone who has been coming to the conference for years and years, it's someone who we have spent years and years with, and we do our best to try to leave those relationships at the door and looked at things very objectively, and that is part of what helps keeps us friends at the end of the day. But I think sometimes it can be hard to not just get too comfortable if you're so confident in your presentation and you submit 2 sentences in the abstract. We're going to have to essentially take that abstract as our source of truth. So I think like just trying to avoid getting like too comfortable. One thing that's like tricky is, as you've said before, like by the time we get to the point of reviewing an abstract, they've likely submitted that weeks or months earlier, maybe the night before, I don't know. But we're at the point of then having to make a decision, and we can't easily go back and have a conversation and say, hey, I would love to see this presentation, but you just haven't really sold it in the abstract. And I guess that's like one benefit that we have at Sec Talks, because we don't really have a formal CFP process because it's a monthly meetup that's constantly happening. Our CFP process is someone talking to me over a beer and saying, here's what I want to present in. And it's that same thing of when you're talking to someone face to face, you get that passion. Like when someone says, oh my God, I was like up till midnight working on this and I found a solution, and you're like, wow, I really want to hear this person talk. But an abstract is just words on a page. So I don't know if there's some way that we could make it more of a conversation. It's not
Take a long time.
Yeah, it's not scalable. But like I'd say like if you are an experienced presenter or even a new presenter, try to have that conversation with someone. Like, you know, I'm sure if you reach out to anyone personally here, they would love to give you feedback on an abstract outside of the CFP process. But even just other people in your team or friends, share it to them and say like, you know, would you go to this talk, not based on me, but based on the abstract? Pretend somebody else submitted it.
Might just add a little bit on that from the BridgeSec process. I had a lot of people reaching out to me going, hey Kat, this is what I'm thinking of talking about. Can I just give you the 5-minute pitch over Teams? And my personal interest or agenda is to try and increase the depth of the talks so that they have applicability for advanced practitioners. And so I'd have people come give me their little 5-minute pitch on the talk. I'd give them my spiel about wanting to talk to an advanced audience. So can you talk a bit more about this section? Maybe a little bit less time explaining what this is. And then, of course, I'd reinforce that it's a decision by committee. So I want to try and maintain that independence. But it's absolutely true. Anyone who has an interest in building the agenda or the program for a conference wants all of those talks to be on point. So we're quite happy to invest a bit of our personal time helping the individual build the topics and the talk and the structure to hit the mark.
I realise that we're blocking you guys from afternoon tea, so we will try to wrap up. I lost my session chair that was wrapping us up on time.
You got 5, no, how much? I'm not even keeping track of time. Oops.
No, we're done.
It's right now.
What do you mean?
So has anyone got any other closing statements? I will just also say, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying it, but he's not here right now. He'll be here for the speed debate. But we rejected Troy Hunt from an abstract. And if you don't write a good submission, you can't coast on any name or any experience to get you in.
100%.
Anything else anyone would like to add?
Just a quick one. And Lydia loves this as well, and we've used this so many times. It's called the Monday rule, right? So we spent the last 2 days at AUSCERT here. 2 days before that was training. Yeah, fantastic. What am I doing on Monday? That's different. What am I changing? That should be in that abstract. If somewhere in there, embedded at the end, at the start, wherever you want to put it, this is fundamentally how individuals are going to change what they're doing next week.
I might beg really quickly if I could. I submitted my SecArc talk last year to AUSCERT and it got declined, rightly so. And I'm glad because I'm a known quantity, and Beck was right. I didn't have substance. I rested on just my opinions. And I'm grateful for her and the team for declining it because this year it's come back stronger. evidence-based. So if you ever get a decline, I hate the word reject because it just means there's something faulty, and it's not. Just have a think about it and get some feedback and think about what you can do to make sure that it meets the conference expectations, because again, every conference is different. So I know we said it this morning, Beck, but I'm actually grateful for that.
And I know it sounds cliche, but it is actually accurate. We get a lot of quality submissions we have to say no to. We have 30 slots to fill, and I think we had over 200 submissions. So unfortunately, that does mean hard decisions.
Yep.
I think just a common theme to me is a passionate talker can talk about anything. I'm personally not the biggest fan of risk management, but I have been glued to the edge of my seat for certain risk management talks when the person's passionate about it. And when we have just a couple of paragraphs, we have to divine whether or not you're passionate. And if you feed that through an LLM, any kind of passion that may have been in there is gone. Even if I wouldn't personally judge someone if they made a grammatical error in their submission, but it's more important to me if there was just paragraphs of just, quite mundane information. I'm losing interest. And how do you convey passion in a couple of paragraphs? I don't know, that's very difficult, but that's what you need to try to capture. Show to us that you're passionate.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there because we are running late, and now I'm the person that's making us run late. But thank you for joining us, everybody, and thank you for my wonderful panel. Really blessed to be able to work with you people on our program committee, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.